So, and how many people's lives have been changed because of his fidelity, you know?
Yeah. They were so drawn to him when he was a young priest. They said he was happy and demanding. And that combo for young people is potent. That he's not pandering to them. He's not going down to their level. He's happy, but he's authentically demanding. And just the magnetism of his personality. Just when he would drive by in the Pope Mobile.
Totally.
You just felt drawn into the weight of his interior life. This gravitas about this man's presence because he was living an interior life.
What is a real man, and why was John Paul II a real man? You know,
Well,
there's a lot of kind of caricatures about what a real man is. Sometimes we're confused in today's day and age. What's a real man?
I did a talk a couple of years ago at a conference, and it was just all college-age guys. And I said, I want to speak a word to the guys here who might experience same-sex attractions. And I said, I want you to rebuke the lie that you're not a man or a true man because of the nature of your sexual attractions.
Yeah.
I said, our manhood is not defined by who we're sexually attracted to. I said, frankly, I kind of wish it were, because then I could be like, wow, like she's really pretty, like I'm a real man. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Like your masculinity is not determined by who you're sexually attracted to. Your masculinity is determined by how well you conform yourself to Jesus Christ crucified. That's it. That's the standard. And so I think we have such a hyper masculinized, this toxic idea of masculinity. But no, if it were masculine, it wouldn't be toxic. And so ultimately what it is,
it's
I think
a toxic lack of masculinity.
Bingo. Yeah. And so what sainthood is the full bloom of the human personality. That the more holy you become as a man, the more authentically masculine you become. So this crisis of sexual identity right now, to me, is a crisis of holiness. Like we're not living out our identity as we should as male and female. And this doesn't mean you have to fit into a little narrow stereotypical box, because none of us can or do. I mean, I remember Sister Deidre Burns, I got to have lunch with her years ago. I mean, this is a nun. Okay, so she's a nun, consecrated religious sister, and she's a doctor, and she's a surgeon, and she's a colonel in the United States Army. And I'm like, did you not feel like being an astronaut because you're lazy, just didn't get around to it, just trying to hog all the vocations yourself? But like, she wasn't doing these things instead of motherhood, she was mothering through these things. And so all these overly rigid gender stereotypes cause a lot of people unnecessary questioning. And you might have someone like an Andrew Tate type character that exteriorly seems to fit the bill. He's got the muscles, the kickboxing, the women, the success, the cars, like you name it, like there you go. But when you look at how Aquinas would define effeminacy, it's like, wait a minute, I think this might be it.
Tell him, how does he define effeminacy?
Well, effeminacy, first we had to we're not talking about femininity, which is a good thing, a perfection. We're not talking about same-sex attractions, totally different thing. Effeminacy, according to Aquinas, is when a man refuses to let go what is pleasurable in order to do what is arduous and good. So it's an inordinate attachment to the pleasure that makes a man effeminate. And this is why I think you have so many single Catholic young adult women, like, where are the guys? They're not around. He's 25 years old, still living with his mom and looking at porn in the basement. And like, so you've got guys that exteriorly might appear very masculine, but could be deeply effeminate. Because
you also have a bunch of women who might appear feminine, but are masculine, who are a train wreck and who men are right to avoid.
Yep, bingo.
Because I was kind of, and I think we're on the same page, but I would do that a lot too. But the more I talk to young men, the more I realize just how we're all in shambles. Yeah. Like, think of a woman who just keeps scrolling Instagram and TikTok for 5 hours a day. Like, what's left in her person that a man could possibly be attracted to?
Yeah.
So I want to put the blame equally on both.
Yeah.
So do you. But.
No, I think it's fair, because I think some of these guys have become effeminate in a reaction to, like, I don't want to offend the women. I got to back down from this gentlemanly role because that's toxic or whatever. But then some women react into these hyper-masculine men by thinking, I need to protect myself. And almost like I need to initiate love myself, or it's never going to happen. And they become aggressive instead of actively receptive. And so we're preying and playing off of each other's weaknesses here.
Yeah, and a man complaining about the state of women is not going to make him more masculine.
No, or women more feminine.
Yeah.
No, what would make women more feminine is if he would just be masculine.
Yeah.
Because then they'd realize...
Presumably, yeah. I think, too, that women can kind of manipulate men who are masculine. It's not necessarily the case that if a man becomes more masculine, the woman will respond beautifully.
No, but she'll feel safer too if it's authentic masculinity.
But even if she wouldn't, again, that's not the point. Like, the point is not to change anybody else. The point is, how do I become the man God is calling me to be?
Yeah.
I actually found it kind of, I think a lot of people found this sad, where that Sheila in the Olympics ran up to her boyfriend and proposed to him.
Yeah.
I think that's really disordered and unbeautiful.
No.
I don't mean to be too harsh about it, and I wish them well.
Yeah.
But there seems to be something about the man who wishes to be the initiator and something about the woman who wishes to receive.
Yeah.
One classic example I offer for this is, when my wife and I were dating and I was in Australia and she was in America, if I would dream about her, if I would just daydream about her, I would always want to hold her.
Yeah.
And she would want to be held. I would never think, unless I was in a position of trauma, like, I want my wife just to hold me.
Yeah.
And she never wanted to be the giver of the embrace. There's like something about who we are at our depth.
Yeah.
Men initiate, women receive. And perhaps we can take that too far and make things too awkward. But I think there's something like that. This is why the men should be the initiator of the gift in the sexual act, in the embrace, for the most part, and then in the proposal. But what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's ontological. Like, this isn't just a cultural stereotype that's been imposed upon us. I mean, the man's body reveals he's the initiator of life-giving love. It's stamped into his body. And the woman is not a passive agent, but rather actively receptive to that. And so I think when we're living out these roles, we're living out not just what we should do, but who we are. And when we're living outside of them, it's just not us. Like, I don't know. I just never grew up dreaming of like a woman serenading me and climbing up the lattice outside of my room to woo me. It's just like, and this isn't to say that every girl dreams of that. I need some knight in shining armor to rescue me. We don't want to go to that extreme. But I remember speaking at a college conference of girls, and this girl came up afterwards, and she was charitable, but she definitely had some edge to her. And she's like, well, what do you think about the girl being the one to make the first move and ask the guy out? I said, you don't want to. And she said, oh, you're right, I don't want to. and then she just opened up and realized, I'm just so frustrated.
Bless
because there's nobody asking us out anymore. And there's no fucking way on earth I'm going to get a date if I don't go to the clubs and start being all flirty, because otherwise no guy is going to ask me out because of my personality. And so it was an act of desperation to find love, because the deepest core of our desires, I just want to be seen. Like, in all of my mess and all of my goodness, I just want to be seen and looked at with love. And in that deep craving we all have, sometimes we just settle for being looked at instead, because we just want to be desired for something. Even if it's just to be used, sometimes we just want, at least I'm wanted for something at the end of the day.
We live in the aftermath of the spiritual A-bomb, which was the sexual revolution. It's almost like if we lived in a post-apocalyptic landscape, as we're used to seeing on sci-fi movies.
Yeah.
Our pain and our desires and our frustrations would make a lot more sense. But instead, we live in this myth where everything's in order and everything's still going the way it always has gone. And yet, men and women have been so devastated by the sexual revolution, by promiscuity, by divorce, and we're all hurting. That's why when people complain about annulments being like Catholic divorces and how there's so many today, I'm like, but wouldn't that, I mean, sure, I'm not denying that maybe that could be abused, but wouldn't that stand to reason that if we've been so wounded by the sexual revolution that a lot of people are entering marriage not knowing what they were committing to? What do you think?
Yeah, because what marriage